Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Cameras to Couches podcast. I, as usual, am your host, Zach Davis.
And I am Emmy Davis.
And we are here to do a weekly highlight. It's been a little while since we've done one, and we decided to do one that's going to be more fun and loose than pretty much anything else we could come up with. But we're gonna do a Davis Family classic once again.
A cult classic.
And a cult classic, and a movie with a very interesting story behind developing it. And we're going to talk about The Emperor's New Groove today. This is a 2001 animated...
2000, I
2000 animated film from... Yeah, it was Christmas of 2000.
I can confirm it was 2000 because Mom was telling me the other day they bought this DVD when she was in the hospital giving birth to me. And for you guys to watch on the portable DVD player, and I was born in 2001, so it had to come out in 2000.
Trust me when I say that DVD got worn out until it did not play anymore. It also had a demo for the Emperor's New Groove game that I tried to play on the computer a couple of times and never really could figure that out at that point. But anyway, let's talk about the movie itself. So this is a 2000 Disney animated movie. It's kind of marking the end of an era for Disney as they're moving into more 3D animated projects with Pixar as their mainstay properties. And it's an interesting shifting point because they've had great success with things in recent memory with projects like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King. And then
Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and they're kind of having trouble finding their footing after doing that so many times. So they're trying to figure out like what the best way to move forward is, and eventually they figure out that it's with 3D animation in some sense, but they also have the Tarzans and the Brother Bears and things like this before they really dive into the full 3D animated style that they are now known for, and that's all they do anymore, which is kind of sad.
It is. I love
2D animated movies like this,
especially 2D Disney. Like that was so good.
Yeah, it's
like
it's
you said, Brother Bear and Tarzan. Wow, what great movies those are.
And this one, like Tarzan, is something that was originally intended to be like a big dramatic musical, and have like moments of levity in it for the sake of retaining the kid audience's attention. But it was supposed to be like an actual dive into Incan folklore, and it shifted hands so many times over the course of the production that it ended up with this final product, which was ridiculously expensive for them at that point, and they decided to move forward with it. But let's do this in our formal order. Let's start with the synopsis. So, long story short, this follows an emperor of Peru, whose name is Cuzco. And he is just that guy. He has the statues that are carved out of his face.
He is spoiled. He is pretentious.
He
thinks that everybody is beneath him.
Yeah, nowhere near like Mel Gibson's Apocalypto level. Very very much like child friendly ideas of what wealth and grandeur look like at this level. Like he's, I love the popping of the bottle against the ship, like little things like that. But he finds, I'm gonna keep this brief, but he finds humility through a series of events, which include his royal sorceress transforming him into a llama, which he meets a peasant who had come to ask him for a favor, which he does not grant to the peasant. He meets him in llama form, and they kind of like form a bond together. And it, long story short, like teaches him how to relate to people that are on a lower level than he is, and be grateful for the things that he has, and be generous with them. That's kind of the crux of this movie, more or less. But it features an awesome cast of characters with David Spade playing Cuzco, the main character. John Goodman plays Pacha, the secondary character. Yzma is Eartha Kitt, and she is so much fun in this role. And there are many videos that you can find of her recording her voice lines for this role, and it's just an absolute blast. But it's Patrick Warburton as Kronk, which
is just a joy.
Yeah, and spawned its own sequel in its own right. And Patrick Warburton has probably been a mainstay because of this movie so much in my generation. I feel like our generation.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people know him as the voice of Kronk.
Yeah, I just don't like. I know he was around at that time, but I can't think of a whole lot of other things that stand out to me until like Ted in
Well,
2012.
He's also in Family Guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a big Seth MacFarlane mainstay. But yeah, he's great in this. He's fantastic. The character of Kronk is so much fun. So I just want to talk about this movie for a little bit.
Do you want to like break down the characters at all, or
I
mean, we kind of talked about
we
Kuzco.
kind of talked about Kuzco, but yeah, Pacha is this peasant who, by the way, the name Pacha means earth in Peruvian, or Peruvian Spanish, and it's just an interesting factor because like John Goodman plays this character, but he also, the character itself tones itself to John Goodman so well.
For sure.
Like he's just exactly like what John Goodman would be if he were,
If you were
an
a
Incan
Peruvian,
guy.
Peruvian peasant.
It's so awesome. He has the same figure that you would expect. He has the same like vocal register. It's
So down
perfect.
to earth, just a chill guy.
Yzma is like this crooked old hag of a sorcerer.
But she's like sultry and seductive and a diva, like, but while also being just hideous.
Yeah, she's very, she like brings that evil side of the wealth out.
She
but
does
also
like
has
supermodel
like
poses all the time.
Yeah.
And
yeah, her outfits are insane in this. It's just a very fun character, and then Kronk is just like the kind of willing
Stooge.
subordinate to her, and stooge for sure. I mean, he is the comedic heel for like most of the movie, but features very well. He's a lot of fun to watch in this, and I've seen this movie so many times over the course of my life that I feel like I can't talk about it without giving light to a lot of my relationship with it, and my relationship with it is just like quoting it with my family back and forth for 25 years.
no, Mom and I were talking about this the other day, and like so much of my sarcasm and like my tone when I'm joking around with people comes from David Spade as Kuzco.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I am Kuzco.
his like laughing in the face of deadly danger because he doesn't fully understand like the capacity of I could die at this moment, and little things like that I guess are more pieces that I have brought to the story as opposed to pieces that are in the story themselves, but I think it says a lot just applying that to the character. Anyway, he is so like facetious throughout the entire movie about the way, I mean, he lies to Pacha when he's transformed into a llama and he meets up with Pacha. He lies to Pacha about fulfilling his promise to him, although he has zero intention of it. And Pacha finds out at some point that he was never going to fulfill his promise, and they go on a split because of that, and then they get back together towards the end of it to just ring in the new year together. I mean, it's just it's a very obvious plot device, but it honestly holds itself really well as just one of those things where if you were there, you were all the way there for it. And
right.
if you like missed the cutoff on it, I don't know if it means as much to people. Like if I was to show somebody The Emperor's New Groove for the first time in 2025, what would their reaction be to it? Or I don't know. But
I think they would love it.
I think it's a joy, and I think
it
it has a really reserved cult classic status, but
I think the story is so fun. I think, like, even though it was so rushed together in such a disastrous production,
and
like, it's such a fun freaking movie, and it's hilarious, and it's just a joy.
It benefits from like the pressure of the creativity in that capsule of like, we have to make this thing funny, and we have to do it now, and we have to turn it and get it out the door.
It's also freaking beautiful. Like, there are so many
really
fun,
good watercolor,
like, well done animated sequences, like without dialogue, like that are just really like, I have one of them in my favorite scenes, and I'll save it for later, but like just so enjoyable. It's
really bizarre that this comes from such like a tumultuous period in Disney's, because they did not know how to market this movie. Like looking at the posters for this movie is bizarre because they're all like, what is this supposed to be? Like, is this supposed to be like you can't even tell. Like, it's the names of the characters in like silhouette background, but like a hyperimposed version of the character right over it, and it's just like they didn't know how to do this, and it got slaughtered at the box office because Jim Carrey's the Grinch That Stole Christmas came out this weekend, and just absolutely got its teeth kicked in by, or The Emperor's New Groove got it just busted by this, but
That makes sense.
it's kind of a shame, and it's kind of a blessing because it's just turned into something that has had so much power behind it in the back end. But like I said, this kind of came out of a lot of turmoil. So let's go ahead and talk about favorite scenes, and we can kind of move into more of the story of the making of the movie after that.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, the one that I was talking about earlier that's just like, I mean, I was watching this movie the other day and I was just like, that's good. Like, why does Disney not make stuff like this anymore? And as Zach mentioned about Kuzco, like he has like his head plastered everywhere and like statues all over. And at some point, essentially, I don't know if he mentioned this in the synopsis, but Yzma attempts to kill him. She thinks that she poisoned him, but instead she turns him into a llama. So her thinking that he's dead, she like plasters her face all over everything, and just the way, like, I don't know, it's such a fun sequence.
They like weave a funeral tapestry for him,
and like she's like they're smashing like her bust over where his busts were, and they're like knocking things over that were Kuzco, and everything's being replaced by Yzma, and it's just a really fun sequence, and it looks really good, and it ends with like her lounging in this chair, and it's just fabulous.
Yeah,
she's fabulous.
I think there's like an opening number, but not like an opening number that alludes to anything else. It's just an opening number.
Yeah.
I love that sequence
Kuzco,
where it's all about just like Kuzco being the man, and oh man, it's so much fun. There's also, I mean, the sequence at the dinner where Kronk is making spinach puffs, and he's just constantly going like out of the room at perfect comedic timing with the actual dramatic events that are happening in the room. It's awesome. It's so much fun.
And okay, I love this scene. At some point during Kuzco and Pacha's journey, they end up in a restaurant, and they disguise Kuzco as a woman. The waitress just assumes
a Kuzco in llama form as a woman,
and the freaking waitress is like, what she says, "Bless you for coming out in public,"
Yeah,
like, because she just assumes it's a really ugly woman, and that cracks me up alone. I also love though, and an onion log to split. I love that. At some point, Yzma and Kronk end up at the restaurant, and
Kronk starts working as the chef.
Yes, and also, like, Kuzco and Pacha are trying to hide from them, and Kronk is working as the chef, and Yzma and Kuzco are like going through the revolving door, changing their order with Kronk, and it's just great. I mean, comedy gold. Thank you so much.
What does he say? Actually, make my
potatoes a salad.
Yeah. Actually, make my potatoes a salad. Oh my gosh,
that whole sequence is so fun.
I'm realizing now that I have like more favorite quotes than I have favorite scenes, and I don't think that's just for sure. I don't think that's because of like
the whole movie's quotable though.
Definitely. I don't think that's because of like a weakness in the scenes, and I'm thinking now about going down the slides when they get back to the castle, and like pull the lever, Kronk, wrong lever is probably one of the all-time quotes from this movie, but there's just like, I totally loved that as a kid. I loved the idea. I also just like loved adrenaline and momentum as a kid, and seeing a slide was always like, oh my god, how fast can I go down this thing?
And when Kuzco and Pacha go in the slide, they end up in the little lab costumes for Yzma and Kronk.
Awesome.
They totally don't fit them. Hilarious. I love it.
So great. I love them looking at all the different potions on the shelf.
I was going to say the potion scene is one of my favorites. At the end, they're trying to obviously change Kuzco back into a human, and they find like a shelf full of all of Yzma's potions that turn into various animals, and they end up just collecting them all and turning into birds and whales, and
based on the situation, he's like, all right, I'm in the water.
Yzma becomes a cat, which is excellent because Eartha Kitt played Catwoman.
Yeah, she's so great in this movie. We got to talk about her more because she is so sarcastic and like, yeah, like you said earlier, diva and bratty, but like decrepit.
It's like she's hideous,
just
but
ancient. Like,
but also like diva. I don't. She's and the supermodel poses and the sultriness that she has, and
there's no thing I can equate it to. Like, I don't know who in real life would be able to portray that convincingly, like unknowingly would they be able to portray that?
I have no idea, but
Wendy Williams.
Oh my god!
I'm sorry for that. Moving on.
I was thinking about the scene in that same like climactic scene where they're doing all the potions and all that. She goes, "I bet you weren't expecting this," and like hikes up her dress, and they scream. They're like
the
oh,
only
God,
piece of
no.
like innuendo in the whole movie.
And then she goes, "Aha!" and pulls it up more, and there's a knife, and they're like, "Oh, okay,
God.
Thank God." And that's
such a great sketch. There are so many like little digs in this that are just explosive and only come from like a Saturday Night Live type of writing room where everybody's just like, and we got to have this, and we got to do this joke. This would be really good right here. And they were just so rushed trying to put everything together to get this movie turned around.
I was
going to
say it also was like almost like 3 different movies entirely.
Yeah.
Like by the time it was finished, it was something completely different than what it had started at.
It totally was diluted. And I guess let's move into internet trivia and just.
Do you want to do quotes?
Yeah. Go quotes. Let's do quotes.
Okay. Let's do quotes. Yzma, she's just great, and she's talking about how to kill Kuzco. She's like, how shall I do it? Oh, I know. I'll turn him into a flea, a very harmless little flea. And I'll put that flea in a box, and I'll put that box in another box, and then I'll mail that box to myself. And when it arrives, I'll smash it with a hammer. It's brilliant, 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 I tell you. Genius, I say. Or, to save on postage, I'll just poison him with this.
That's so good. Or, like, that whole monologue of just a stupid plan. And that is a very...
Or to save on postage is one of my favorites.
Or to save on postage. Come on. I love Kronk humming his theme song as he's running down the stairs. Yeah. And the obvious like loop back of that track, like where
Patrick Warburton ad-libbed that.
Yeah, and Disney had him sign a contract so they could copyright the tune.
Yeah.
Like everybody was so legally afraid around this movie. It's so crazy.
When in that same scene when Kronk is humming his own theme song with what he assumes is dead Kuzco in a bag, he at like the very end he like almost walks off this waterfall trying to catch Kuzco, and it like zooms out, and there's just this bug, and then a monkey comes and eats it.
Zooms out. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Does a 5 wide zoom.
Kuzco goes, what's with the chimp and the bug? Can we get back to me, please? And that is something I say all the time.
It's a great joke. It's a great joke that you can make bigger than it actually is, but it just works as a small joke too. Mm-hmm. And I really, it's perfect. It's such a perfect touch.
David Spade's tone is so perfect in that delivery.
He's doing.
What's with the chimp and the bug?
He's doing really great work in this movie. It really feels like he's trying to catch up to Sandler, like with the performance that he's giving in this movie. It's weird.
This is like one of his best. This is like his best performance. I can't even lie.
I love him. I love him in stuff like Benchwarmers. I mean,
I don't know. I think this is my favorite performance. Maybe not his best, but
certainly the most
favorite.
Iconic for us, for sure.
What do you have any quotes, or should I keep going?
I didn't have any written down because I was I know I'll be able to think of plenty. I mean,
okay. So, one of the most iconic lines is, "You threw off my groove. I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove. Sorry." And they throw this old man out the window, and it cuts to these guys at the bottom of the palace, and it's like a guard and a guy that delivers trampolines, and he says, "For the last time, we did not order a giant trampoline." He said, "You could have sent me, you know what, pal, you could have told me that before I set it up." and it's hilarious.
That is
And I
such
just
a-
realized the lead up was wrong. It's when Yzma falls.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
when Yzma falls as a cat. That's when that same audio clip over and over.
Oh, it's so great. There are so many little things in like that are just like, all right, we're just gonna fill the plot for this second just for the sake of comedic genius. And there's another part that kind of alludes to that, where they're going on like this big journey from the restaurant that Emily was talking about earlier, and Kronk and Kuzco, or Pacha and Kuzco, are out in front, and Kronk and Yzma are behind them, and they're like, you're seeing them catch up on this map. And at the end of the scene, when they end up in Yzma's lab, Kronk and Yzma pull the map out, and they're like, how did you get here so fast? And they're like,
How did we get here, Kronk?
by all accounts,
accounts,
it doesn't make
any
sense. Yeah, it's so perfect. They just like fill the gaps with so many little things like that, and it works. I really think it, like, in a lot of cases it can be considered lazy, but when you see
It's
like the
so-
whole scope of what this project was and how hard they had to push to get this part of it out the door, it totally works. It totally functions.
And it like just works with the vibe of the movie too.
Yeah, and it adds like a timeless level of commitment. Like there's no timely references of 2000
No,
or
which I love.
we're talking about George Bush or anything like that. It's just a good comedy. It's just a hearty comedy, and they really don't make stuff like this anymore. Like it's funny to see things nowadays where they're like, okay, we have to make this reference. Danny and I were watching Suicide Squad a couple of weekends ago, and I was like, this is already old.
Yeah.
I was like, this is already 5 years old, and I can feel every ounce of that. And it just doesn't fly anymore.
Which is
But it does with this, and I totally love it.
okay. Don't tell me. We're about to go over a huge waterfall,
Sharp rocks at the bottom.
most likely.
Bring it on.
I've been turned into a cow. Can I
go home?
You are excused.
You are excused.
Anyone else? There's the whole monologue that Yzma does. Well, this is a running bit in the movie. Kronk has like a little angel and devil on his shoulder. And it's Yzma's like monologuing, and it's intermittently interrupted by
He's got a point.
by the angel and devil, and she's like talking down to him, and he's like, you're being so stupid. And she's like, a really, really big stupid monkey named Kronk. And do you want to know something else? I never liked your spinach puffs. Never. That's it.
yeah.
She's going down.
Yeah, now I think of the angel and devil, and there's one scene when the devil is like trying to convince him to do something. The angel's like, don't do it, dude, take the righteous path. And the devil starts doing like a one-armed push-up.
He's like,
On
no,
a
no.
one-armed handstand
He's
push
like,
up, and
look at how cool this is.
The Kronk's like, I don't really see how this is, and the angel's like, no, he's got a point. It's so great.
Oh my god.
There's so many little bits.
This is one of my favorites, and this is something that I refer to often because as a waiter, this is super relatable. Kronk, after he's the cook
Mazel
in the
tov.
in the restaurant, he is like sleeping in his tent, and he wakes up. He's like, the peasant at the diner. He didn't pay his check. And then he wakes up and he's like, the peasant at the diner is the one that I saw carrying Cusco. And if he's the one I saw carrying Cusco, then and he like wakes up Yzma, and she's got like cucumbers on her eyes and a face.
Oh!
And he freaks out. And she's like, this had better be good. And I just love this movie.
This had better be good. Yeah, they created a distraction at the
diner.
restaurant with like a Mexican happy birthday song. Yeah, it's an absolute blast.
Happy birthday from all of us to you. We wish it was a birthday so we could party too.
Yeah. It's so crazy and so wonderful.
Oh, I forgot. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. And then he goes and wakes up Yzma.
Oh, it's so great. Those are iconic. Like those are lines that just will forever be remembered. Okay, let's talk about the making of this movie a little bit. So, like I said earlier, this movie was originally intended to be like a drama, like in a Beauty and the Beast vein, where Cusco was coursing through a series of events that take place over the course of Incan folklore or Peruvian folklore, and he was supposed to be like harnessing the sun, lassoing the sun, and Pacha falls in love with his wife or something like that.
Pacha is his lookalike. Something happens to Kuzco, and Yzma convinces Pacha to like take over, and he ends up falling in love with Kuzco's fiance and stuff like that. And then Kuzco ends up falling in love with he turns into a llama, and he ends up falling in love with like the llama herdress.
Yeah, something whatever. Like that. It of the same tone, like with the themes that you take away from the movie, but without like any of the comedy in it. The music was written by Sting. They partnered with Sting to write.
And Wilson was also going to play Pacha.
Yeah.
And he was unknown at that point.
It's so wild to like look back on things like that and be like, what would this have been? And honestly, I feel like I would have liked that movie, but I don't know if I would have liked it like I liked this movie.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been iconic like this one, I don't think.
It was supposed to be called Empire of the Sun, I think.
Kingdom of the
Sun. Oh yeah, Empire of the Sun is Japan. But it kind of fell apart into the back end. I can't remember who was directing it when they first started the project, but it just started like crumbling to pieces, and Disney and John Lasseter came in to take a look at the project and were like, this is not going to work. So they had like several more months of production on it and trying to get it to this point where they wanted it to work. And they cut out like 90% of the Sting songs. I think there was a point where they only had 2 songs of the original like 10 that Sting had composed.
Yeah. There's a clip of Sting talking to the writer, and he's like, "See what you've done here is you've eliminated this line from the song, and that's to me like, that's the crux of the song."
Yeah, it's so wild to see like the way that he was. I don't know. It's an interesting like scope of the industry at that time, and just like where animation was in 2000 and how it had just become this like profitable mainstream thing where it was like you take your kids to the theater and you see a Pixar movie and
a Disney movie, not quite
a Disney movie for it was starting to like, I think by the time it hit Monsters Inc. and Finding Nemo was the time that it kind of shifted to like we go see a Disney Pixar movie.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that at the time that the people started putting this together. So as they're working on this project, this big dramatic like broadly scored project with Sting, they're starting to figure out that like audiences are not as interested in things like this anymore. And so they have to shift gears, and John Lasseter and some of the Disney execs come in to look at the project, and they're like, okay, we have this other guy who's interested in turning this into a comedy, and we're going to turn it over to him if you cannot prove that this movie will be a success. And they'd been watching screenings of this movie for years. They've been watching scenes from it for years and being like, I don't know how I feel about this. And the comedy director comes in and just knocks the lights out of all of them. And they switch hands on it. And the project goes over to this new direction where there are no Sting songs in it and there's no music in it, and it's just this hour and a 30-minute comedy where you just blast through a bunch of the important, I wouldn't even say important, dramatic themes of the entire theme of the entire thing. Sting was also incredibly frustrated when the project was finished to see that the ending included like Kuzco gets his happy ending, and he like plants a theme park over Pacha's house or something like that, and they had to change the ending because he was like, I'm an environmentalist. I can't stand behind this idea of like.
So instead of like him having his own mountain with a theme park, he just has like his own little house.
He has like a getaway next to Pacha's. It's so bizarre to see like the creative process get so damned over the course of things like this, because like I said, I don't know if that would have been a bad movie. It certainly would not have been the cult classic that it is now, but it's amazing to see how they had to turn that around and be like
another Atlantis,
all right, this has to come out at Christmas this year, so you guys better hurry your ass up and get this done. It's
the first screening of Kingdom of the Sun actually went like terribly.
Yeah, famously terribly.
There's a really good video that most of our information on the production
Yeah,
of this is it's
I'll link this in the comments of this video because
Yeah.
it's worth watching.
it's like a 20-minute video. It's from a great YouTube channel called What a Shit Show, and they just talk about how disastrous
they cover
the
so many things.
productions
So
of certain things can be.
they have a really good 4-part series on Marvel, and just like the process behind getting Marvel off the ground initially, what happened once Iron Man came out, what happened once like Phase 1 was over and they were trying to figure out where to go with, and like, while I don't look at that and I'm like, the artistic process, I do look at that and I'm like, wow, what innovation the industry has seen over several years. They also have, I mean, they've got Indiana Jones videos, and they have an excellent video on the Abyss. James Cameron's The Abyss, and like them filming it in old nuclear power plants full of water and things like that. It's
That's
amazing.
wild.
I absolutely love watching their videos. But check that out because this is what inspired me to talk so much about the
making
development
of
this
this
movie. It's fantastic, and it's amazing that like this product came out of that because it is such like a floating piece of plastic in a massive wave of it in 2000. And I guess by that I mean like just the big push towards being able to pick up a DVD at a roadside station like my parents did when my mom was in labor with my sister, and like, okay, the kids can watch this is good. They made sequels. Did they make they only made Kronk's New Groove, right?
I feel like there's another
I think there's another
New
piece
Groove
in
property,
there.
but
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I think that Kronk's New Groove is a movie that I had watched back then and probably will never watch again.
Squeak, squeaker, squeak, squeak.
Yeah, there's a whole plot about Kronk being in the Boy Scouts, and they're all squirrel Boy Scouts. But it's very fun, and I really think that you should check this movie out if you haven't seen it. So,
Do you have any more internet research fun
there-
facts? I have some.
I don't know if I have any outside of the.
I have
making of.
just 3.
Hmm.
In light of the making of this being as disastrous as it was, the final script wasn't submitted to Disney until 2 weeks after the movie came out into theaters.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which is just crazy. Chica, who is Pacha's wife, we really didn't talk about Pacha's family, but they are some excellent characters. His wife is just this sweet little pregnant woman. She's powerful and like she's like
Stay-at-home mom with 2 kids.
yeah,
and pregnant.
and the kids are like little crackheads and hilarious, obviously. But she is the first pregnant woman, the first animated pregnant human woman in a Disney movie, and she's also one of the few mothers shown that does not die. Yeah.
Congratulations to her.
Way to
She's
go,
great.
Chica.
One thing I do want to note just before we get too far off of the development track, there is a documentary about
yeah.
the making of this movie called The Sweatbox, released by Sting's wife, that Disney owns and you cannot watch anymore unless you pirate it on Vimeo like I did. It's pretty crazy. There's something to seek out if you're really willing to go down the rabbit hole. Anyway.
This is my last one. Cusco was not originally going to be the name of the main character. It was going to be Menko, but that is a dirty word in Japanese, so they decided to go with something else.
We're not going to do that. You could call it Disney.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And I looked up what the word was, and I was like, you.
Okay. Do you have any more internet trivia?
That is all of my internet trivia. I've got my rating and my double feature.
Yeah, let's hit the double feature.
The Road to El Dorado.
Nice. I think that's a good one.
Just thematically, it makes me think of this.
I was thinking in the last throes of like Disney 2D animation, Atlantis and Treasure Planet.
I was thinking those two, but I feel like those go so hand in hand because they're both like treasure movies,
Yeah, and
this
they're
is kind
also
of like an
blending the
adventure
2D
movie.
3D animation.
Yeah,
It's
but nevertheless, excellent movies, great pick.
yeah.
I also put
do love Treasure
Sinbad.
Planet.
Do you remember
Yeah,
that
Sinbad's a
Sinbad
good
movie?
one. Sinbad's a good one.
Yeah, I always
Didn't hit the same highs as Road to El Dorado, but
No.
DreamWorks was trying really hard with those. They were trying to take Disney's throne with that stuff,
Mm.
and they just found that there was not a profit for that anymore because everybody was too busy focusing on the Sully's fur. Yeah, I really love this movie. I would give this movie now I mean, this is a 5 out of 5 in my youth. For emotional reasons, I would give it a 5 out of 5. But realistically, I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5.
I have this as a 4.5 out of 5.
Nice.
I adore it.
Yeah,
I love this movie.
Great stuff. Okay, well, we will be back around with a weekend roundup this weekend. There's not a whole lot to see, so we're gonna find some topics to talk about. But you guys stay classy and stay safe with the cold front that's finally working its way out of our system. And
Don't throw off any grooves.
Yeah, don't throw off any grooves. Don't fall on any trampolines, and we will catch you next week.